We have new episodes dropping every other week. You can find them early on Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Music, or wherever you find your podcasts, or find the link below for our Megaphone landing page, and we will see you around the campfire. Hey, it's Paul.
Hey, it's Jess.
Welcome to Campfire Ashes. Now pull up a log. Let me tell you a story. The bush jostled with barely a sound. Translucent red eyes peeked out through the gaps in the leaves. The white flower blooms helped hide the critter as it waited patiently, waiting for the cougar slinking through the tall grass. Each step was quiet and deliberate. It was hard to believe that you could cover so much ground while barely making a sound. Minutes stretched on, feeling like hours, but still it sat quietly in the bush, motionless. When everything felt right, it stepped out from under the bush, furry padded feet attached to some powerful hind legs. They stretched out, getting the blood rushing back into the extremities after being so stationary for so long. It hopped around for a bit before heading to a particular patch of tasty sawgrass it had its eye on before it was rudely interrupted by an uninvited guest. It nibbled on the grass, keeping an eye on for surroundings to make sure the cougar did not pick up its scent again. A twig snap rang out like a shotgun blast. The creature's powerful hind legs launched it nearly 10 feet off to the path and into the same brush, intently looking through the flower pods again as a hiking couple hiking through the national park came into the clearing about 30 feet away. They were a common nuisance on this picturesque mountainside path. Unlike the cougar, the need for absolute silence was not nearly as needed. From that distance from the clearing, the humans couldn't hear the gnawing of the bush leaves. At least there was a snack. It was not as nutritious as the lush grass across the way, but the safety was always key. It knew it was different from other animals, and that difference would carry the scrutiny that was not really desired. The furry form quietly shimmied between nearby branches to branch as the couple in the clearing finished up their alien custom of laying a checkered grass square onto the top of natural grass, and then they eat out of another woven grass casing. They were more conscientious than most of the other humans, making sure to gather every little scrap of refuse and jammed it into their grass casing. Its furry head tried to shake out the idea of trying to swallow some of the silvery scraps from the last humans and the incontinence that followed later that night. The two-legged versions always seemed so annoying and so loud. The lush grass was calling its name. The sharp buck teeth cleaved through the strong sawgrass. The roughage was always more filling, but then the hair on its back bristled as soon as it realized the mistake. Out of the corner of its eyes, the cougar slinked out of the clearing, coiled and ready to pounce. Instinct took over. In an instant, it spun around and bounded as far as it could with those powerful jackrabbit-like legs as it could push. It sailed into the air off the edge of the mountainside towards the overhanging branches. Millions of years evolution kicked in for the cougar too, and it mindlessly jumped over the ledge before realizing how steep the drop-off was. A growl echoed through the valley as the mountain cat sailed out of sight. Tangled in the tree limb, the small furry animal hung there, its feet dangling in the air, and a pair of antlers caught in between the forks of the woods. If the animal was just a rabbit, it would have met the same fate as a cougar. It needed a rabbit's foot for good luck, and being a jackalope meant that it was luckier than most because it had 4.
I almost wrote about this.
Again?
Not like recently. So like it wasn't a situation like last time where like, oh my god, like this like literally within days of each other almost did the same thing. It was a few months back where I almost wrote about it, and it was one of those situations where like, oh, I really want to write about this, but I wasn't feeling inspired when I did it.
Mm.
So I scrapped it. But yeah, I almost wrote about it once, and now here you are doing it.
Well, I've actually almost written about this too. This is going to be like the third or fourth story of the podcast, and I just couldn't find a story that like did it because like we were always like, let's intently do like horror stories and all that kind of stuff. So like you've done a couple stories that weren't like horrific. So like this is probably like one of the first stories of like, yay, someone didn't die in my books or my story horrifically.
Yeah, which is like really funny to me because the entire time I'm sitting here waiting, like, okay, like when does it get sinister? Like you mentioned national parks, where are we going with this? Like, because I think you're about to talk about something that I absolutely refuse to talk about.
Oh, I
And I was
know.
about to be like,
Yeah,
I was about to
I
be
can
like, hey
tell.
man, sorry, like we can't do this.
I can tell. I can. Yes. Yes.
I mean,
Kind of
obviously,
like
if you put in the
Winnebagos.
research effort.
Yes.
Hmm.
The
Yeah, no, if
Winnebago.
you put in the research and effort into something like that, like I 100% would talk to you about it. But it would be a very much like you dialogue heavy episode where you would get very little input from me aside of I don't really want to acknowledge that this exists.
All right, good. So that is a guest
So
story episode. Got it.
yeah, so here I was like thinking that's where we were going with this, and I'm like, oh my god, you did not do this. I can't believe you did this. And then it wasn't. And I'm like, first of all, I'm shocked, well, both shocked and pleasantly surprised, that you did like a nicer, like not
A whimsical one.
yeah, not like a savage story. But
So
two, like
that's what
I
I was
didn't
trying to
expect
do the
you to be
first
talking
time.
about that. Yeah.
The first time I was trying to make like a savage version of the story, and then
But
like
this
somebody died.
isn't
I was like, it just felt forced.
yeah,
And I was
because I
just
mean
like,
this isn't that. Like this is I mean not that it can't be, but well you know, you tell them. You tell them.
mm-hmm. Yeah.
You
So
know.
this is the jackalope. And the jackalope's a really interesting thing because
I
even
think it's
though
cute.
yes, it's adorable. Even though this is an American tale, jackalopes are like an American cryptid. The idea of jackalopes or similar things have gone back centuries. So the origin of the jackalope, specifically the jackalope, a a pair of brothers, I think it was brothers, right? Yes. They were kind of learning about taxidermy skills in the 20s and 30s. And they had just finished hunting and had a rabbit and had a deer. So basically, what happened is when they were just getting ready, they just kind of tossed the rabbit aside, like we'll get to it later, and landed next to the deer, and like right in front of the antler. So basically, like it landed on the deer head, and they looked at it like, huh. So then through taxidermy, they literally took the deer antlers and put it on the rabbit head, and thus, boom, jackalope was created. That's really how that actually happened. So
Like
it's
the
weird.
jackalope as a cryptid is basically just like memes.
It's like the memes from the 30s. It's like I'm gonna take this deer, I'm gonna take these deer antlers, and I'm just going to like staple them on this rabbit head. So this happened in Douglas, Wyoming, and then what they did is they mounted it, and they're just like, we're gonna put this out, we're gonna put this thing, and it became so popular that people wanted jackalopes. So they actually like, and they like opened up retail stores doing taxidermy jackalopes. And like I can vividly remember this as like going to family vacations in West Virginia with my family, and like seeing some of these corner stores that had jackalope heads in addition to like all the deer heads and stuff like that. When you go into West Virginia, like backwoods convenience store West Virginia, the amount of taxidermy that you see is insane. But I vividly remember these as a child, like going in and it's like, oh, there's a rabbit with antlers. Is this real?
I don't think I've ever actually seen like a taxidermy one, so that's funny to me that that was like a more common thing for you. I don't think I've ever actually seen one.
It was way more common a long time ago. Like you don't like, I don't think people are doing jackalopes now, but like in the early '80s and stuff like that. So
Hold
like if you,
that thought. My cousin does taxidermy. Let's send her a text real quick to prove you wrong.
it's like ask, it's like, hey, have you ever done a jackalope?
And or would you make me one?
So basically, what happens is like if you're talking about the early '80s, those are people that have probably had those things since like the '50s. So like back when like the popularity of these things happened was like the '30s and '40s, and that's why somebody might have like bought one and handed it down and handed it down and handed it down. So it became a thing. So yeah, it was literally, and it's kind of interesting because we've done stories like this similar to where like the idea that we have of a story is written out of like somebody's weird taxidermy thing, like for example, like the Jersey Devil. Like the modern interpretation that we have of the Jersey Devil is somebody bought a kangaroo from a zoo and then stapled hooves and antlers and wings on it, and that's how we got the Jersey Devil. Weird. We're weird people.
How bizarre. But also, like, I don't know. That's like an acceptable level of weird to me.
But I mean, also it's like it's not that far off because if you were a kid in the '80s and early '90s when you had America's Funniest Home Videos, uh, right after Funniest Home Videos was America's Funniest People, and that was done by Dave Coulier, and he had a mascot that was a jackalope.
I need to see this footage
You
immediately.
need to see it because he would just like fossil, fossil, don't touch me, and it's like a weird, like it's a weird voice that he would do, and he would do a bunch of jackalope things. And now that I'm saying it, like I like can vividly remember these stories of like these like weird clips of like jackalope being like a folk hero or a superhero kind of thing in these America's Funniest People clips. But yeah, Dave Coulier had a jackalope for the longest time in that series.
He's not allowed to do funny voices for anyone that's not Mr. Woodchuck. What the hell?
Well, yeah, it's similar to the woodchuck. It was similar to the woodchuck, and it was I think it was actually kind of the same voice, but but like
Explain. We know you're listening.
yeah, yeah, Dave.
Explain. Is this why Alanis left?
You didn't cheat on her. You're just like, hey, I've got this weird thing, and like put a jackalope on your hand, and she was just like, yeah, I'm not doing that. And then when she wrote Jagged Little Pill, she was like, I can't write about a jackalope, so maybe he just cheated on me.
And that is the origin of Jagged Little Pill.
It is absolutely not the origin
The
of
abridged
Jagged Little Pill,
origin.
but it's ours. It's our headcanon now. That Dave Coulier screwed up his relationship with Alanis Morissette because he wanted to be a jackalope ventriloquist, and then he brought that to America's Funniest People, and that's what we have.
I mean, it's not like either one of them are listening to dispute that, so.
Yeah.
I am.
Get a message from Dave Coulier. It's like, actually, it's
Stop
closer to
spreading
reality.
false information.
No, he comes up and he was like, actually, it's closer to reality than you think it is. I'm like, oh my
You'd
god.
be pleasantly surprised.
I would love it. But the
Just be like,
popularity of
yes.
but the popularity of jackalopes actually became so big that the Wyoming legislature almost made it their official mythical creature. As far as I know, I think New Jersey's the only one that still actually has a mythical creature as a official mythical creature, like the Jersey
Right.
Devil. But like Wyoming came close.
Well, I mean,
It actually came very, very
what
close.
else is going on in Wyoming? All right, like what? You need the clout. Why would you not do this? Like, who willingly is like, I want to go to Wyoming?
Mm-hmm.
No offense to anybody that's in Wyoming and, loves being there. I've never been to Wyoming. I can't, like, I don't have any ground to stand on here. But, like, me personally at this point in my life, like, what's the appeal of Wyoming? Enlighten me. Because to me, like, I think it would be a lot more appealing if I go on the Wyoming state website and they're like, yeah, our cryptid is the jackalope.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like the Dakotas. I don't even remember which one has Mount Rushmore. You know what I mean? Like they're not relevant.
Well, interestingly enough, the retail shop for jackalopes was in South Dakota.
Look at that. I'm gonna get so much hate. I'm sorry.
It actually was in South Dakota. I'm pretty sure Mount Rushmore's in South Dakota also.
I think it's South Dakota.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I'm gonna get so much hate from people that live in these states. I'm sorry. I'm sure it's lovely. I've never been there. Like I'll admit that. But yeah, dude, some places in the United States that I'm just like, what's the appeal? Why do people stay there? Why do people live there? What's going on there? You know?
So the word jackalope is a portmanteau. A portmanteau is a meshing of two words um, that you combine to get a new word. For example, like smog is a portmanteau. That is combining smoke and fog. Or like motel is a motor hotel. So motel. So there's your new word, portmanteau. And that is the meshing of two words to basically scrunch it into one.
I'm about to get pretend second. The Yeah, okay. I'm gonna be an asshole. Sorry in advance. I have always heard it pronounced portmanteau, and now I don't know if
Okay,
I'm
it could
wrong
be.
or you're wrong.
It could be
And
portmanteau.
I have to know, am I wrong?
Actually, you know what? It probably is portmanteau because it's spelled. It's basically like the TEAU is definitely like the same as plateau, so it's probably portmanteau.
But like, notice how like that is the least relevant part of anything you just said to me, and my little pea brain is just like, you're saying it wrong. Paul must
It's
be
like
saying it right. Talk about it.
no, it's probably is portmanteau.
That's so not relevant, and my little pea brain is just like hyper fixated on one of you is wrong.
But anyway, uh, also again, since the jackalope is very much a United States thing, the origins do go back further than that. So like, it wasn't just like there's Persian works. I think there's a version of the jackalope in the Quran. I believe on the
Interesting.
yeah. So basically, it was more of a rabbit with a single horn, like kind of like a unicorn.
But
Um,
still,
but and this was actually what I was going to write before, like when I first did it. There's in Bavaria, Germany, Romania, all that kind of stuff. You have Wolpertingers. Wolpertinger
right, we
is
didn't miss that.
yeah is a similar thing, which is a rabbit with antlers, but it also has wings and fangs.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but is like a more threatening entity than a jackalope.
A little bit more, yes, yeah. I
Yeah,
mean that's hence the fangs,
right.
and I believe those have also ended up in stories and things like that.
Do you
So
ever notice how wings tend to make things seem more threatening?
yeah,
Like if people are like, this isn't threatening enough, let's make it fly.
yeah.
Like, what if spiders could fly?
No, God, why would you? No,
Sorry, Mom.
no,
I
absolutely.
officially just made my mom stop listening to this podcast.
Yeah. All right.
My
Well.
mom hates spiders. Sorry. That's 2 weeks in a row that I talked about spiders, but
Oh
this
my
time I made it much more terrifying.
Jesus. No.
I mean, but
Um.
you see what I mean? The moment I said that, the moment I put that imagery in your head, much more threatening.
Yeah.
Further my point.
Jesus. No. Oh my. No. Oh God.
Apologies to my mom and my mom only. The
You
rest of you, I'm
apologize
not
to
sorry.
you apologize to me. Damn it. Like that's horrible. I
I'm
don't
not
ever want
sorry.
that.
I said what I said.
Alyssa's no, my girlfriend's gonna stop listening to this episode. She noped
Okay,
out.
I apologize to her.
She noped out. Um.
I have to apologize to my bestie. Sorry.
Yeah. Um. So yeah, like so also in Central America, the and I'm going to butcher this. I'm going to say the Huichol legends.
Better than I could do.
Yeah, it's Huichol. So it like could be Huichol legends. The jackrabbit or the a form of jackalope was said to give its antlers to the deer, and the deer in that culture is very sacred. Um, and it was like in those representations, uh, the rabbit and deer are very much synonymous with each other. They're like the yin and yang in those cultures, and it's just weird. They're represented as twins. The sun and the moon is like a rabbit and a deer kind of thing. It's very interesting. Um,
But like it makes sense
Mm-hmm.
in a very yeah, I don't know. Like I don't think that's a correlation I would have immediately drawn, but like hearing it, yeah. I can get behind that. I can see the symbolism in that.
Mm-hmm. So, okay, so here's why I probably saw these more often. Frank English from Rapid City, South Dakota, has sold, has made and sold thousands of jackalopes since retiring from the Air Force in 1981. So as late as 1981, the store has been going crazy with it, and you can sell them for about $150. Standard jackalope and world record jackalope sell for $150, and he is the only supplier of this to Cabela's. So if you know
Oh,
about the
look at
Cabela's
yeah.
catalog, you could buy or I don't know if you can now, but like you could buy out of the Cabela's catalog. You could buy a jackalope for about $150.
I'm looking it up right now.
Yeah. So there's so much things. So it is a obviously it's not a real thing. There's not jackalopes going around. However, and it's something about our podcast is we always try to kind of ground the situation. Jackalopes technically can exist in real life.
Oh, okay, before we get into that, because that just blew my fucking mind. Uh, I didn't see anything on Cabela's official website, but I do have a friend that works for Cabela's, and I'm now pending his reply. Probably will not be before we finish recording this episode, but in a future episode, I will let you know what he
Mm-hmm.
says.
So part of why we think that this actually is a thing, and why the idea of horned rabbits has gone back centuries, is a virus, a papillomavirus. So, like, we have HPV, which is human
Yeah.
papillomavirus. Rabbits have a similar virus called Shope's papillomavirus, which is named after Richard Shope, who described it in 1933. Here's what happens. The Shope's papillomavirus creates a keratin imbalance and basically causes keratin deposits to build up in rabbits and painfully break through the skin and basically like create like keratin horns. They can appear anywhere in the body, but typically only present themselves in the head and skull area. Unfortunately, sometimes they can actually like protrude out of the jaws, and that keeps the rabbit from being able to close their mouths, and they end up starving and dying. But this is actually a phenomenon that may have created the whole idea, not necessarily jackalopes, because jackalopes was very much a like two drunk people hunting and doing taxidermy decided we're going to do this. But there actually is a thing, and I can actually show you like a picture of one of the more horrific versions of it, because again, this is a virus. But yeah, like there's actually this is actually a phenomenon that happens in our world, and could be a reason as to why we see this. Like we always talk about how like our brain kind of like will kind of get a piece of information and then run with it, and that's why we have some of the things that we do in reality. But
Oh, that looks so sad.
it is sad. It's very sad. But that's a reality. Like that's an actual thing that happens. And it also might be similar to the phenomenon of not deer, going back to
A
one of
very
our
early
one
episode,
of
if not
our
the
very early
first.
episodes. Um,
If not the first. First or
might be a
second?
thing.
It's first or second. Are we
I think it
are
might
we
be the
sharing
second.
are we sharing this picture when we post about this? Like, are people gonna see this?
No, not that I'm gonna see that one.
Okay. So since you won't see, I mean, Google is free. You can use it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Not saying that I advise you to because it's sad and a little graphic, but I'm not. I can't make you not look this up. Uh, it it almost looks like this rabbit has like a thick branch like stuck through its mouth,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not. Like that's growing from a keratin imbalance inside of it. That is so sad.
Yeah, but I mean, I will send you some other ones too that very much look like, oh, this looks like it could be
A legitimate
a legitimate thing.
living, breathing jackalope, like it's alive.
Yeah.
Oh wow! Oh, that looks like it's possessed by a demon.
Yes, exactly. So if you look at now,
This
obviously it's not Shope's papilloma in deer. It would be probably be something else. But the similar papilloma virus would cause the same keratin imbalance in deer.
it's
You,
I mentioned it in the Not There episode. It's like chronic wasting disease or something.
mm,
It's something like that. But the thing about this one is like this this is just sad because this poor bunny, like its eyes so like its pupil is so big. Like this poor thing must be in like
pain.
immense physical pain. Aw,
Yeah.
poor rabbits. But yeah, like this one almost looks like it's growing scales, like it's like turning into a dragon. And the
Mm,
first one, it's like a tentacle creature like coming out of it.
mm. But then you have this one, and this one
Which
very much looks like a jackalope.
yeah, this one's cute. This one just looks like it's a bunny with horns.
Yeah. So you can see from a person who just like sees this thing galloping off somewhere, like, yeah, no, I can completely understand why we get this idea of a horned rabbit running around. Similar to how like we get sea monsters, which are more like people have contributed to much more likely to be oarfish, which are like,
I no. No, I don't want to talk about oarfish.
oh, you're not really oarfish. You're not a fan of oarfish. Okay.
I Deep ocean stuff, man.
Yeah, deep ocean stuff is creepy.
I don't want to know. I think there's a reason we don't know. You know.
Yeah,
I think
deep
there's a
ocean
reason we
stuff can
don't
be
know
like
what's in like
really.
the deep depths of the ocean.
Yeah, I'd rather not. I'd rather
And
not know
I don't know
everything.
if we're meant to. I don't know if we're meant to discover that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm okay if we don't. I could go the rest of my life not knowing what's down there as long as it stays down there and does not bother me.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, so like that's the thing. It's like it's basically it's just a a situation where we don't recognize it, so our brain is like, well, let's matrix things together, and this is what we're gonna get. So obviously, no, it wasn't a keratin imbalance. It was obviously a rabbit with horns. But like this phenomenon didn't come along, wasn't even named until the 30s and 40s. Like even before that, like you're talking in the 16th and 17th century, scientists were actually trying to create a family in the genus animal families. And it wasn't until like the late 18th century that they rejected the idea of horned rabbits as a biological species. But they didn't know what created it. But when you're looking at scientific journals in the 15th and 1600s, they had horned rabbits as like real things.
It's
Um,
crazy to me to think about like science and scientists and scientific journals existing in those times because to me like those are the times where you
those are
would
the
go
dark
to a
ages.
doctor and they'd be like, "Oh, you have a cough? Do some coke about it."
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Or like, oh, you can't sleep at night. Obviously, you're possessed. You know,
Mm-hmm.
like it's just
Or
crazy to me to think of that as like science. You know,
mm-hmm.
in air
Oh,
quotes,
your fingers are numb. We need to put leeches at the end of your fingers to
to
kind of draw the
stimulate blood
yeah
flow.
to stimulate blood flow. Like, yeah, we were some
That
weird
okay,
people.
like incorrect, obviously, but like that one to me at least like kind of seems founded in some logic.
No, that's actually that. So even to this day, that's actually a real practice that can actually work. So basically, what
That's
happens is
crazy.
in in
I thought it was
no
a joke.
no
That's crazy.
in rare situations, if you have people that have had detached fingers when they're sewed on, they I don't know if it's like today kind of thing, but like very recent in medical history, they would put leeches on the fingers to basically help draw the blood flow back through the decapitated, or not decapitated, but the amputated
That
uh, pieces of your body that were reattached. So that actually was like it worked.
I didn't know that. See,
Yeah.
cause yeah, like I thought it was a joke, but to me that sounds like kind of based, like that's founded. But
Mm.
yeah, oh, you can't sleep. Clearly, you're possessed. Like, how is this science? Like, how did we go from that to like legitimate medical science? You know, it's just man, life is strange.
Mm. So jackalopes became so prevalent in the upper Midwest that the county where they were selling the taxidermy things actually kind of got in trouble for selling hunting tags to people for a jackalope season.
Oh my God.
Like you could hunt jackalopes in
Wow.
Douglas, South Dakota, and of course
No,
people got mad.
I'm not now, nor have I ever been, nor will I ever be like a big hunting person. I don't personally, um, you know, agree with all forms of hunting, but like it's your right to do it. Like have fun with that. Like you enjoy that. Like it's a completely valid thing. But I like my concern this whole time was just like, oh, I hope that the rabbits and the horns and antlers that they're using are like ethically sourced. Like I hope they're not just like killing things to,
Oh, absolutely, they are
meet
not ethically
demand.
sourced.
I
In the
know.
70s
Like
and
here's
80s,
me like lying to myself.
absolutely, absolutely, they are just slaughtering
I know. So there's
rabbits
me
by
like
the thousands, and
here's me
also
here's
small
me
deer.
with my little concerns being like, oh, I hope these are ethically sourced things. Like I want to, I want to
No,
suspend disbelief here and just pretend that, they're 100% meeting this demand for jackalope taxidermy with, ethically sourced, forms of taxidermy, knowing full well, like being in blatant denial of the fact that that's not what's happening. But then you're telling me, like, oh yeah, like they got in trouble for selling tags for that, not even realizing, again, because I'm not a hunter, that, like,
well, they were
yeah, you
they
have
were
to
joke
pay,
tags. They
but
were
yeah,
joke tags made
but yeah,
for
but
a
like
day that
hunters have to pay for like hunting licenses and stuff and like to be able to like hunt these things, and it's like something that I just completely didn't even think about right now until you said that I was like,
yeah.
like first of all, that's not funny because this isn't a legitimate thing, and second of all, it's not funny because like people are paying good money to hunt things that aren't real.
Well, see, here's the thing. So basically, their way around it was the it was only available for one day. Like you could only hunt jackalopes on one day, and it was on June 31st.
Wow. Oh,
And
it's
that's
like April Fools.
yes, because June 31st does not exist.
So funny.
So you could only hunt jackalopes on June 31st from midnight to 2 a.m. And the hunter
Okay,
must
so
have an IQ greater than 50 but not over 72.
wow, they put a lot of thought into
They did
something
put a
like
lot of thought about it. Thousands of licenses have been issued in the town of Douglas.
but That's what gets me. Like they had to sell enough that it became a problem that they got in trouble for it, and you just said thousands.
Thousands, yes. And there is an 8-foot statue of a jackalope in the town, and they have a jackalope celebration day in early June.
There are things about the human race that make me realize, like, we as a species, are clearly like resilient and smart, and like this is why we've survived as long as we have. But then things like this exist,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like, how? Calling back to aliens, like how are we here? you know, like we are both so smart and so dumb.
Yeah. So, this Richard Dorson, has a book called Man and Beast in American Comic Legends, which basically talks about some of the cryptid lore that we have. In 1978, they revised it to include uh, 4 pages devoted just to the jackalope, and this thing also includes uh, the rubberondo porcupine. Don't know what that is. The snolligaster. Don't know what that is. Three-tailed uh, bavilars, and the squonk. And I know what a squonk is. Squonk.
Love a squonk. Y'all will definitely hear about a squonk at some point. I didn't write it yet, but I plan to, so.
Yeah, so in 2005, the legislature in Wyoming actually passed the House by a vote of 45-12 to make it the official mythological creature of Wyoming, but they couldn't get it through the Senate before the Senate session ended, and then the bill just died. They just like lost interest.
Oh. Oh. Come on, Wyoming.
And then they tried to do it again because the sponsor Dave Edwards died in 2013, and they were just like, we're going to do this again, and it again passed in the House, but then it died in the Rules Committee of the Senate.
What is going on here?
Yes.
This is so aggravating. Like, do you know how many stupid and unfair and ridiculous state laws get passed, but you can't do something like this that like almost has really no effect on anything besides bringing people joy and laughter?
So in 2014, the Wyoming lottery, like for example, how you have your like you have Phil, which is your like lottery guy. They have YOLO. They have YOLO, the jackalope, which is their official
his name
logo.
Is YOLO.
His name is YOLO. Yep. YOLO.
You're doing simultaneously too much and not enough, Wyoming. Too much and not enough. You're doing the wrong things with the jackalope here.
Yes, in 2014, it was that before over a bucking horse and other state symbols. They chose that over. They chose a fictitious animal over the bucking horse and other state symbols that they wanted to do, and named him YOLO.
Wyoming.
Yeah.
We gotta end there. I don't have words for that.
I kind of want to go to South Dakota because you can ride the jackalope in Wyoming. It's like 8 feet tall, has a saddle, and you can ride it. Yes, in South Dakota. Yes.
Okay, now we have a reason to go to South Dakota.
But yeah, we can end it there. It's funny. I just thought it was a really cool episode, and it was really like fun. But yeah, that is the tale of the jackalope and why it's real.
And why Wyoming needs to make it their state cryptid.
Yeah, seriously.
Get it together.
And remember, last one out douses the fire. If you heard something, no you didn't. If you're here with us next time, it means you made it through the morning.